Hello, dear Sangha. Welcome to the first episode of Lay Buddhist Reacts Japan. Today I want to share something that is near and dear to my heart. I lived in Japan for almost 8 years, so it's hard to, kind of let it go. Although I do practice non-attachment like most Buddhists do, something about Japan just clings to me. It's like, because actually that's where I started my Buddhist journey. So, I can't help but think about Japan. I even speak some Japanese and I have Japanese friends. And in fact, one of my friends wanted me to share this particular topic with you guys. At one time, I was talking to her about Wabi Sabi, and she wanted to know more about what I knew about the topic. So, I guess this video is a result of that conversation. And also, I just would love to just get right back into talking about these things. So, without further ado, grab your glass of tea and join me on this journey of exploring Wabi Sabi from the Buddhist perspective.
In recent years, Wabi Sabi has been gaining recognition in the Western world, with many books covering the subject. It is a Japanese philosophy that celebrates impermanence, imperfection, and simplicity.
Yes, right away we can see its Buddhist roots. Impermanence is a very important Buddhist concept. The Buddha said there are 3 marks of existence, which is anicca, impermanence, anatta, non-self, and dukkha, which means suffering. These are marks of existence because we cannot escape them in our life. We have to basically come to terms with those 3 aspects of our lives. And then if we do come to terms with them, then our lives actually become more fruitful, more wholesome for us.
In a world that often values perfection, Wabi Sabi invites us to embrace the beauty in the things that are imperfect and weathered by time. In this video, we'll explore the origins of Wabi Sabi, its key principles, and how it can inspire us to live a more meaningful life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
What is Wabi Sabi?
What is Wabi Sabi? Wabi Sabi can be observed in various aspects of life, such as a crack on a teapot, an old door, green moss on a rock, or even a misty landscape. The philosophy of Wabi Sabi can relate to objects and even human beings, where beauty is accepted as something that will eventually fade away, or having the mindset that the passing of time can actually enhance an item's beauty.
Yeah, so again, impermanence, passing of time. That's what this is all about. Just accepting impermanence, but also seeing the beauty of it.
Eventually giving it a new charm. The term Wabi Sabi is derived from 2 Japanese characters. Ever since the 12th century, the second character Sabi became associated with the delightful contemplation of old and worn objects. Sabi also came to mean old and elegant, or rusty, with an untranslatable feeling of peacefulness. It wasn't until the 15th century that the first character Wabi emerged. It referred to a new way of thinking about beauty, especially during the tea ceremony. Wabi influenced the way the tea ceremony was conducted.
Yeah, so here we can see chadō, or basically the way of tea. And yeah, so this was very prevalent in East Asian cultures, mainly because it came from China, and I believe from Shandong area, but it traveled over to Japan very early on, and in Japan they just they took tea ceremonies to a whole new level, to the point to where the place that you're supposed to sit and supposed to interact and have this moment, it was basically sacred, and you were expected to carry yourself in a specific way.
And the utensils used during the formal event. The essence of Wabi can be traced back to loneliness and sadness. However, later on, the meaning changed to a more positive one.
I like that he showed a Buddhist monk here because, yeah, like the characters for Wabi Sabi, like they refer to impermanence, and whenever I brought this up to my friends in Japan, they would say, "Well, don't you think it's kind of sad, or it's a little bit negative?" And I don't have that association, but uh, again, in the Buddhist reckoning, impermanence is not sad or negative at all. It's actually the other way around. When we recognize it and understand how to deal with it, then it's no longer a negative aspect of life.
It evolved to an admiration for peaceful existence, far from the chaos of urban life. The two characters then put together, creating the term wabi-sabi, is a bit difficult to translate. For the Japanese, wabi-sabi is more of a feeling than a concrete idea, and is present in classical Japanese aesthetics, such as flower arrangement, philosophy, poetry, tea ceremonies, and Zen gardens. Wabi-sabi goes against modern consumer culture, instead encouraging simplicity and authenticity in all things.
He's saying it goes against modern culture. I'm not in Japan. I'm not totally sure about that. I mean, because we can even see wabi-sabi in like corporate buildings or in like the current Osaka castle. It's not necessarily a conflict necessarily, and I find that sometimes we lose the plot when we focus too much on like modernization. Because again, Wabi Sabi tells us to focus on impermanence. Well, modernization is also part of that, but the aesthetic also relates back in time, which is very ironic. It relates back to, that the Sengoku period or the Warring States period.
The concept of wabi-sabi has always been part of Japanese culture, and its roots can be traced back to the story of Sen no Rikyu, a Zen monk from the 16th century.
Okay. I'm not sure if he was a monk, Sen no Rikyu. Actually, he's from Sakai. It's a place in Osaka. I've been there. I did study a little bit about the life of Sen no Rikyu. But the thing is that I believe he was what we call a chase, which means like the saint of tea ceremonies. And chase is basically it's like a vassal or something like that to the shogun, who I believe was Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Anywho, Sen no Rikyu's life and the circumstances about his life are very interesting, and they actually sort of convey a lot about the way Japan developed as a culture.
He was credited with formalizing the tea ceremony that is still practiced in Japan today. According to legend, Rikyu wanted to learn the ancient codes of the tea ceremony, so he went to find a recognized tea master named Takinoju. He was then given the task to take care of the garden by his
Takenojo
master. After thoroughly cleaning and raking the garden, Rikyu shook a cherry blossom tree, causing the pink sakura flowers to fall into the ground. This imperfection brought a new beauty to the scene, inspiring the birth of the wabi-sabi concept.
So a lot about why the sakura or the cherry blossoms became so popular in Japan is kind of lost to history, but Sen no Rikyu is also credited for that in part because what was considered noble and beautiful or the highest of luxury and oral beauty in Japan in the past was actually ume or plum trees. So the plum blossoms were actually the ancient flower that was favored, and then slowly but surely sakura became more and more prevalent. So anyway, just a little bit of 2 cents there.
Key principles of wabi-sabi. One of the key principles of wabi-sabi is impermanence. In the wabi-sabi philosophy, everything is constantly changing, and nothing lasts forever. Instead of holding on to things that will eventually fade away, wabi-sabi teaches us to appreciate the beauty of impermanence, and to find joy in the present moment. In the Western world, we tend to value things that are new, shiny, and flawless, but in the wabi-sabi philosophy, Things that are worn, chipped, or cracked are seen as more beautiful because they have a history and a story to tell.
We can see that Wabi Sabi is really about, again, impermanence and the aesthetic of impermanence. So we're looking at how it tells us and informs us about the beauty of things. And it's also closely related to another concept called mono no aware, which means like of the pity of things, or it means basically like time will pass regardless of what, we cannot cling to it, but instead we can see the beauty of it, and it's closely related to another concept known as shinyo in Japanese, or tatata in Pali. Those words mean suchness. So when we have shinyo or tatata, we are seeing that things are such, and that suchness basically helps us be at peace with things, regardless of what's happening. And again, that's also closely related to equanimity. In Japan, there's this idea that we can understand suchness through the passage of time and how it changes the way things look, and also how we can design and conceive of art and architecture, even behavior, based on this idea that things must change and that they are actually more beautiful for that very reason.
This can be seen in the traditional Japanese architecture, which favors simple, clean lines and the use of natural materials like wood and stone. How can we apply wabi-sabi? So how can we apply the principles of wabi-sabi to our own lives? Here are a few thoughts. First, embrace impermanence. Instead of worrying about the future or regretting the past, focus on the present moment and find joy in the small things.
Yes, according to the Buddha and all of his followers like myself, this is how we come to know peace. So the idea of peace, it's preferable to the alternative, which is suffering or just seeing things in a negative light. Wabi-sabi in Japan, and the idea of impermanence in all of Buddhism, basically puts all of this into perspective and shows us that that regardless of change and the impermanence of everything, we can be at peace with it all. Even aging, even sickness, even death, those are still just moments in our lives, and we can endure, we can gaman suru, which means to endure or to basically hang in there.
Nothing in this world is permanent, and everything is constantly changing. By embracing impermanence, we can learn to let go of our attachment to things and experiences, and instead focus on the present moment.
Right, well, he's putting focus on objects, but we also have something called mental formations or perspectives. We can let go of those things as well.
This philosophy encourages us to find beauty in the fleeting moments of life, and to appreciate the small things that often go unnoticed. It's a reminder to be present and fully engaged in the world around us, rather than being consumed by our worries and regrets. By focusing on the present moment, we can develop a greater sense of appreciation for what we have. We can learn to find joy in the simple things in life, such as the sound of birds chirping, reading a good book, or even sipping a cup of tea.
I'm not sure what kind of bird that is, but in Japan, I just love the sound of uguisu, which are bush warblers. Whenever I go outside and meditate on the riverbank, I could hear them and their distinct call. I'll never forget that. Anywho.
Of tea. We can also learn to appreciate the people in our lives and the relationships we have, recognizing that they too are impermanent and need to be cherished while they last.
Indeed. Here we can see like people are also coming and going in our lives. In Buddhism we have something called the 5 remembrances, which are that we are of the nature of growing old, we are of the nature of getting sick, we are of the nature of dying. Every person, this is the important one, the 4th one, Every person that we love and cherish will leave our lives one way or another. And finally, the fifth remembrance is our actions and our way of thinking, the way that we conceive of things, they are defining factors of how we lived our lives. So basically, the karma, in Buddhism, we believe in karma. Karma is basically wrought by our actions. So if we remember these five things, we can cherish life in an impermanence, in a very wholesome way, as opposed to an unwholesome way. Because if we forget those five things, chances are that we start to fall back into living in an unwholesome way. Another thing about people in our lives, they do depart, that fourth remembrance. We shouldn't think of it as something sad. When we miss someone, let's transform that attitude or that formation, transform it into something positive, not negative. The people that passed away in our lives, the people that had to leave for one way or another, like I had to leave Japan and leave people behind, just because that happened doesn't mean that they have to be a negative point of my purview. Rather, my outlook, is more positive and more wholesome, because when I remember who those people were and how much they affected my life for the better, the more wholesome I feel. So instead of framing people from the past who have left your life as something negative, frame them as something, as a reminder of, wow, I had a really good relationship with those people, and that person who passed away, who I long for and miss so dearly, that person wants me to have a happy, successful, and peaceful life. And I think that is true about every person that we miss. Again, Wabi Sabi is kind of about that as well. It's a lot of things.
Secondly, appreciate imperfection. Don't worry about having everything perfect all the time. Embrace the little quirks and imperfections that make you unique. Wabi Sabi recognizes that imperfection is a natural part of life.
Alright, so just a quick note about the music. I love Arhu music, and in Japan they have a similar instrument to it, but Arhu is generally Chinese, so I just wanted to note that, but it's okay.
And that it's okay to make mistakes and fall short of our goals. In fact, these imperfections can be valuable learning opportunities that help us grow and develop as individuals. Thirdly, simplify your life. Get rid of the clutter and focus on things that truly matter to you. By simplifying our lives, we can reduce stress and find more time to connect with ourselves, others, and the world around us. In addition to decluttering our physical space, simplifying our lives can also involve reducing commitments.
Sorry, this just reminds me of the KonMari method, or kondomari. Yeah, joke that this young Japanese woman comes to America and helps Americans clean up their filth. I can't help but feel that way too. Japan is a very clean place, a very resourceful country and culture. So everything is utilized very thoughtfully. And I think this also extends from Wabi Sabi.
And focusing on the things that truly matter to us. This can mean saying no to activities or events that do not align with our values or goals, and prioritizing activities that bring us joy and fulfillment.
Yes, that's a really good point. How our world is affected by hustle culture. But if we just take a moment to understand suchness through something like Wabi Sabi, then we can live more peacefully.
For watching the video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.
Yeah, and that goes for you too. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Well, my YouTube Sangha, I hope you enjoyed this video about Wabi Sabi. 日本の友達の皆さん、この美しい文化に感謝します。本当にありがとうございました。Okay, friends, I hope to see you again next time on Lay Buddhist Reacts. Please comment, like, and subscribe. May you be happy and well. Kasho.